During I said that I saw in parts of New Jersey, Jersey City, but parts of New Jersey, I saw people getting together and in fairly large numbers celebrating as the World Trade Center was coming down, killing thousands of people, thousands and thousands of people. But the media was going crazy. They were having a field day. And one of my people came in, Mr. Trump, I have a story in the Washington Post. Oh, Washington Post. Washington Post. How good is that, right? That's good. Because they do us no favors.
I'm joined now by Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post, John Hinderaker of Powerline. Gentlemen, you two have been engaged in a conversation about Donald Trump and the 9/11 Jersey population celebration. Glenn, welcome. Let me have you start. What did you write, and what did you come to a conclusion? You're the fact checker at the Post.
Well, Donald Trump on the campaign trail and also in a television interview made two claims: that thousands and thousands of Arabs were celebrating as the Twin Towers fell, and that he had watched this happen on TV. So that was the claim I fact-checked, and that's what I was looking for. There is, at this point, zero evidence that thousands or even hundreds of Arabs were seen celebrating, and no video has emerged of any such celebration, or believe me, it would have been on TV or YouTube by now. And even if you believe that some Muslims might have been celebrating in New Jersey, and I'm sure there are always going to be instances of inappropriate behavior in any tragedy, Trump's claim is so wildly off base that what I did is I assigned him 4 Pinocchios, which is my worst rating.
John Hinderaker, you then proceeded to fact-check the fact-checker. What was your response?
Well, my response was that it wasn't very good fact-checking. It took me about a minute and a half to come up with an article from the Washington Post, Glenn Kessler's own newspaper, on September 18, 2001, that described, well, I'll just read it. It says, in Jersey City, within hours of the 2 jetliners plowing into the World Trade Center, law enforcement authorities detained and questioned a number of people who were allegedly seen celebrating the attacks and holding tailgate-style parties on rooftops while they watched the devastation on the other side of the river. Now, Glenn Kessler apparently was unaware of that article in his own newspaper when he wrote his fact check, and also apparently was unaware of a similar report from the San Francisco Chronicle and other reports on local radio stations. Now, these were all easily accessible via Google, and so my initial observation was that Mr. Kessler did not perform anything like a thorough fact check, because what he said was that an extensive examination of news clips turns up nothing. He says there were some reports of celebrations overseas in Muslim countries, but nothing that we can find involving the Arab populations of New Jersey. Nothing. And that just wasn't true.
Glenn Kessler, your response.
Well, I think, well, first of all, John, I mean, you're a lawyer. Tell me what the word allegedly means.
Oh, allegedly means that it was said to be true, but as you know, it was later confirmed.
No, it was not
by
confirmed.
Your reporters.
No, it was not confirmed.
Well, should I read it to you?
No. Well, first of all, I was grateful. I did miss that piece when I was first looking into this. I mean, the Washington Post does not have a good archival system. I used a database called Nexus. I looked for Arabs. I was trying to confirm Trump's notion that there were thousands or even hundreds of people celebrating. And I did post that fact check at about 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. And a reader tweeted at me that there was this article in the Post, which I had missed. And so within 2 hours, I had updated it to reflect the material in that Post article. And then, as I always do, I continue reporting. No fact check is ever completely completed. If a reader gives me more information, I'll continue to follow up. So I spoke, for instance, to the reporters who wrote the story. There was one who was in D.C. interviewing law enforcement officials. The other, Freddie, was in Jersey City interviewing residents. Freddie told me that he spent days trying to confirm rumors of rooftop parties and couldn't do it. That's why the story said allegedly. And I will note, this article was on the 15th, that line that you read, that sentence, was in the 15th paragraph of an article on page 6. And I guarantee you, if there had been some confirmation of that, it would have been at the top of the article. And, of course, you know that you probably saw there was an interview today in the New York Times with John Farmer, who at the time was the New Jersey Attorney General, and he emphatically said that Trump was wrong. He said police repeatedly checked out those reports of rooftop parties and found them to be false.
Okay, I'll be right back with Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post, John Hinderaker of Powerline, talking about Donald Trump's assertion of seeing thousands and thousands of demonstrators cheering the fall of the towers. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. 44 minutes after the hour, America. It's Hugh Hewitt with John Hinderaker of Powerline blog, Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post. We're talking about Donald Trump's claim of having seen thousands and thousands of New Jersey Muslims celebrating the fall of the towers, Glenn Kessler's fact check of it, John Hinderaker's fact check of the fact check, and now we're talking about how such a statement by a would-be nominee should be critiqued, if you were, by the media. John, we went to break. Glenn had just said, okay, you missed the article you found, but basically no big deal. It doesn't check out. Your response?
Well, he's also wrong about the fact that the claim that article was unconfirmed. In July of 2004, Professor Irfan Khawaja wrote, again, I'm just going to quote, in an email to me on December 16, 2003, Kovalevsky, who was one of the Post reporters who wrote that 2001 article, indicated that his information had come from the Jersey City Police Department and that he had confirmed the police department's information via interviews of eyewitnesses of the celebration. So it was confirmed by the reporter with interviews of eyewitnesses.
Well,
and you know what
hold
happened?
on, just to make it clear, that's a paraphrase from Mr. Khawaja, and and I just explained to you what the reporter said directly to me. Now, since your piece in Powerline appeared, Mr. Khawaja has actually written the piece summarizing all of his research, which went on beyond that little snippet you mentioned there. And the summary of his research is titled, "Yes, Trump is Lying." And then he goes on further in that piece to discuss your article in Powerline. And he says, the sentence you just quoted, the sentence absolutely does not provide evidence of Trump's veracity or quasi-veracity or anything approximating his veracity. My view is Trump is lying about Jersey City, and nothing I've written or said should be construed to suggest otherwise. Contrary to what Powerline would have its readers believe, I should not be construed as saying the celebrations were confirmed by the Jersey City Police Department. They were not confirmed.
John.
Well, he wrote in 2004. Obviously, he wasn't talking about Donald Trump in 2004. He's obviously a man with an agenda because he's quoting the reporter. He says
he's actually paraphrasing.
Guys, we can't talk over each other. Gentlemen, we can't talk over each other.
Okay, all right.
John Hinderaker, go ahead, and then we'll go.
What you're quoting from is a paraphrase of an email.
Glenn,
as I've already told you.
And there are other reports as well, as you know. Look, let me make a very fundamental point. Trump exaggerated here when he said there were thousands of people celebrating. You exaggerated when you said you did a thorough search and you found nothing. Nothing is as much an exaggeration as thousands. The fact is that there were accounts, and there were accounts that checked out, of some number of American Muslims celebrating that event. And that's a serious matter. And as a matter of fact, Glenn, after I wrote my critique of your article, you went back and surreptitiously changed it. And this is a very fundamental point. You went back to the most important paragraph in your column where you concluded nothing that we can find involving the Arab populations of New Jersey. And without noting a correction, without even noting that you had made a change, you added the words, except for unconfirmed reports.
John, that was simply added for clarity, in part to reflect the updates I added below. I always highlight if I made an error, particularly if it might result in a change in the final ruling. But in this case, this additional detail about this long-buried Washington Post story made no difference in the final ruling. And in fact, PolitiFact and FactCheck.org wrote fact checks after mine appeared, in which they accounted for that article that you highlighted. And again, they came to the same conclusion. PolitiFact gave it their worst rating, pants on fire. And, well, I always respond to reader critiques and reader information. I've updated the article. I continue to report on it. it gives a very full picture about all the evidence that is out there, and to somehow equate something that was missing from my article for a couple hours to Donald Trump's repeated false assertion that thousands of Arabs were celebrating and that this appeared on TV. Let's not forget he said he saw it on TV, which he didn't, is a kind of a false equivalence.
Well, there's exaggeration on both sides. I want to mention one more point, though, Glenn, and that is that you tweeted, quote, several people allegedly celebrating, close quote, does not equal thousands. That was in response to this Washington Post
yes,
article.
the article said a number of.
No, hang on a second,
typing
Glenn.
a tweet on an iPhone.
Glenn, hang on.
But it.
Let me just suggest to you, Glenn,
this is
a basic journalism principle that you do not put words in quotation marks unless they're a quote. And that quote, what you put in quotation marks, several people allegedly celebrating, does not appear in the Washington Post article. That's not what it says.
And it doesn't appear in my fact check either. You're quoting from a tweet.
Basic rule
John,
of journalism.
that is really beneath you. Because I always find Powerline interesting to read, but I really think with your article today or the other day, I really think you damaged your credibility. Because Trump is running around citing this sentence that you plucked out as confirmation of his claim that thousands of Muslims were celebrating. And that's false.
He should cite the fact that I have said at least 15 times that he exaggerated. He probably won't do that. But, Glenn, you're not answering my question. Doesn't it violate a basic rule of journalism to put something in quotation marks that is not, in fact, a quote?
We're talking about a tweet, John. It is not in the article that I wrote. And you're throwing up smoke here because you're embarrassed at how badly you did your job. And
Glenn, the bottom line somebody here did his job badly, but it wasn't. Are you suggesting?
All right, gentlemen, we'll be right back after break. Don't go anywhere. I'm coming right back. I'll give each of you a minute to close off this hour. The Jeb Bush interview is already posted over at HughHewitt.com. Don't go anywhere, America, except stay right here, because when we're done talking with Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post and with John Hinderaker of Powerline blog, I will be back to talk with Charles Koch, because it's just an interesting day on Thanksgiving Eve. If you're stuck in traffic, you're at the right place. You're at the Hugh Hewitt Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. Charles Koch coming up, but I want to give our combatants here, our sparring partners, they need to go see Creed tonight. John Hinderaker of Powerline and Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post. Each a last word. We have 3 minutes. John, I let Glenn open, so I'll let you open the last segment. Your statement, then, Glenn, you'll get the last minute and a half.
Well, I've said most of what I want to say, Hugh, really. You know, my point is that Glenn and Donald Trump both exaggerated. Glenn, who purports to be an objective fact checker, said that he'd performed a thorough examination of the records and he found nothing about American Muslims celebrating the attacks on the Twin Towers. Well, if you do a minute and a half Google search, you don't find nothing, you find something. You find multiple reports, including multiple confirmed reports, some of which we didn't even talk about. When I challenged Glenn on the article that he had written, he scrambled around, and now he started doing the research that he should have done before he wrote it. And he went back and he changed it. He changed the most critical paragraph to soften it. And I don't think that's good journalistic practice, because he didn't note that it was a correction. He in a tweet, he put words in quotation marks when they were not a quote. And apparently he thinks that's all right as long as it's only a tweet.
All right, Glenn, you get the last minute and a half.
I think it's true that only a small number of American Muslims celebrated those attacks. But a small number can be important. The Paris attacks were carried out by, 8 or 10
John, I get my chance.
All right, Glenn Kessler, go ahead.
The rug, I think, is not
okay.
Right.
The bottom line is my fact check completely stands the bottom line conclusion, which is that Donald Trump deserves 4 Pinocchios for falsely saying that thousands of Arabs were seen celebrating in New Jersey and that he saw it on TV. The 2 instances that John has so highlighted, the one article in the Washington Post, which, yes, I didn't know at first, but quickly had in my article. The reporters in that article say it does not confirm what John thinks it says. The professor that he quotes also has written extensively saying the readers of Powerline should not believe what John has written. So those are the facts. And the facts are that my fact check will stand the test of time far more than the Powerline blog piece that John wrote.
Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post, John Hinderaker of Powerline, thanks to you both for coming on Thanksgiving Eve. Busy time for everyone, but I wanted to highlight this, particularly given Jeb Bush brought it up at the first part of the show today. Again, and Donald Trump is standing by his recollection. I continue to say to everyone, memory is what memory is, but you can't remember that which didn't happen, although you're absolutely certain it did. Don't go anywhere. Charles Koch is coming up after the break, America. The new book, Good Prophet, is in bookstores everywhere. He's made himself available for a long conversation with me, and I'm really looking forward to that. Interesting man, interesting company, interesting discussion on Thanksgiving Eve. It is the Hugh Hewitt Show.